All right, guys, I think we might be on. Let's take a look here. Hold on. I'm going to my live stream on the Arcade Archives website. Let's take a look if I'm online. This way I know it's for real. Let's see. Anytime this week. And let's take a look. Where are you? It's around somewhere. I'm going to find you. Well, let's do it this way then. We'll go to my Twitch on my phone. Let's take a look here. Where am I? Let's see if I'm live. Am I live? I'm live. There I am. Very nice. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's live stream, our live stream of Coin Up with me, Ray the Arcade Guy. And tonight we are going to go over this little ditty. This is probably my favorite out of the collection. This is Volume 2. It has, like I've said in the intro or the preview, I guess, that one of my all-time favorite games, a couple of them actually, are on here. One of them being Mappy. And everybody knows I love Mappy, and I've done a couple of reviews on Mappy, and it's just a great game. It's a lot of fun, a lot of challenge, very unique in the way a platformer is. It does it and it excels very well. Also, Super Pac-Man's on here, which, if I had to look at all the Pac-Man games, probably the most challenging out of the group is Super Pac-Man. And I brought this up in the when we did the Pac-Man 40th. That Super Pac-Man is the legitimate sequel to the original Pac-Man. And a lot of people did not know that because we got Miss Pac-Man. But Super Pac-Man is the actual sequel. Then you got, of course, Xevious, Gapless, which is a really good version of Galaga. It's the third in the series. You had Galaxian, and then you had Galaga, and then you had Gapless. You also have Grobda. Now, Grobda is different because it is actually a character in Xevious. It's the tank. And the challenge is you're on a playfield and you have to be the last one standing. And it is a very challenging game. Dragon Buster is very interesting. One of the earlier adventure style games that Namco did. And it's notoriously known for the character sprite being backwards. His head is, you'll see when we go into the game. I'll show it to you really briefly. But tonight's going to be about going through this museum and checking out some of the memorabilia and walking around. And you, like I said last week, what's really cool about the this series is it adapts, it changes. Every single museum is different every single volume. It is not the same museum. This is probably closest to the first one, but you're going to notice there's a lot more involved in it. They had probably time to understand how to build the museum at this point and added a lot more features to it, and it's a lot of fun. And wait till we get to the little like break room lounge. It's called the lounge. You're gonna love it. It's fantastic in this game. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got going on here with this thing. Okay, so bear with me. We're going to go into this game here. Let me just double check and make sure I'm still on, which I am over here. For some reason on my computer it's not showing, but I'm online according to this. So we're going to go with it. So let's go into Namco Museum Volume 2. Here we go. Very exciting. Wait to see the intro for this too. It is really, really good. So I'm very excited that we're going to do this game tonight. And of course, it has Mappy jumping across the screen instead of Pac-Man walking. So I thought, but wait till you see this intro. It is fantastic. Yeah. And there we are. We're live on Twitch. My chat room is open for anybody that wants to speak to me if you want to. If not, fantastic. Just watch the show. I love that Pac Man is controlling the Xevious ship with a PlayStation controller. Here we go. This is my favorite part. Yeah! And there he is, the man himself, Mappy. Yeah. Flanks beam activated. Namco Museum Volume 2. I remember getting this, and this was the one I was most excited for. Like I said, the first one's great. The second one is spectacular. And you're going to find out why, because it's really cool. So we're going to go into the museum. Now, you'll notice the menus are pretty much exactly the same. Like, you know, like if I hit museum, I go into museum. If I scroll down to games, it's going to give me a list of the games that are on the disc, so you can pick what you want to play and just go straight to the game, which is really cool if that's what you want. But we are going to the museum. And here we go. This is where things get just, like I said last week, it's so cool how they just design this environment. And this is like before VR really was a thing. And this one works exactly the same. You can move around, you can look. I think it was Y. You can look up. Yep, there you go. Now there's no. No, that was in the main lobby. That's right. There was just a vent in here. You can look out the window. That's where you were outside. You know. And here's our little information robot we can talk to. So we're going to give her a shout. And of course, she tells us exactly the same as the other one, that there are 6 games in here. And we will register our name. There we go. And of course, in the old days, when you had your memory card, it would store all of that information, your name, your stats, any, you know, high scores you got, things like that. I mean, this was like really high tech, unheard of stuff at the time. So we're going into the museum. You're going to notice this one looks exactly the same. The sky isn't blue in this one, it's orange. It's like it's sunset outside. So you can kind of scroll around. And we're going to, there's Mappy, Dragon Buster, Super Pac-Man, Xevious, Gapless, Grabda, and your lounge. Okay, so we're going to start with Mappy. Go right over here to Mappy and see what happens. Here we go. As you can see, same design. You walk in and there's all this memorabilia. Of course, you have the standard flyer that came out at the time. Flyers are just the way that games were sold back in the day. They still do it today. Not as prominent as it was back then, because remember, back then we didn't have the internet. I mean, it's kind of scary that this series came out really when the internet was in its infancy. It was just like, you know, I didn't even have the internet at the time. But this is like exactly what you would see when you would go to like a distributor to look for a game. They would hand you flyers, or they may have them laying around, or when you go to things like the AMOA, they would have them laying around, and they would always give you one so that you can take it home and peruse it and decide if you wanted that game in your arcade. And I always liked it. Now, the pamphlet usually came in two sections. You had a front and a back. Sometimes it was a folded, it would have, an inside and an outside. Um, and Namco's were always very colorful and bright, especially in the early 80s, very similar to Atari. They were always very vibrant flyers. They would engage you. You would look at them and go, "Yep, I like that game." And Mappy was fairly successful here in the United States. Not like Pac-Man successful, but successful in its own way. And it caught my attention. The minute I saw it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's the kind of game I want to play." Because I've always said it, the game, the cabinet of the game has to hook you, because the cabinet really is what pulls you in. And this cabinet was beyond unique. Now, in Japan, it looked different. The Bally went nuts with this cabinet. That it was a one of a kind. They ended up selling a kit for it for Junior Pac-Man. You could put Junior Pac-Man in it. Um, but Mappy was one of a kind. They went crazy with Mappy because they saw the success of Pac-Man. They wanted those cute games. And at that point, Atari was jumping in, and they had gotten Dig Dug. So Bally did not get Dig Dug, so they opted for Mappy, and they went crazy with Mappy. Some cool little, like this stuff would be worth so much today if in good shape. Hey, there's Josh. How you doing, buddy? We're going over Mappy. And tonight seems to be doing a lot better than last week and the week before. I seem to be doing very well here. So hopefully, cross your fingers. Um, we're just going over the memorabilia. Now, this is the hints, of course, like we saw before. You know, in Mappy, you have items the cats have stolen. And this, I always looked at the house as their hideout, or you could look at it the other way and say, this is the house that they're burgling, and you're going to capture those items before the cats get them. And you want to go through and get all the items that you see. And the nice part, like most Namco games, there's a little hook to it. If you collect both of the same item, it doubles its points. So it's always important that you want to go in and get as many matching items as you possibly can. So that's where the challenge comes in. Like there's always, particularly with Namco, they were always really good at that. Where the hook was to see how big a score you could get. Well, they made sure you could get a high score, especially on Mappy. It's such a challenge. Now, the Meowkies are the pink cats. They're always chasing you. Now, in the States, he's called Goro, the leader. In Japan, there were some board sets where he was called Nyamko. Now, the doors are really the key to this game. They can prevent or they can hinder your progress by opening them and closing them repeatedly. You can sometimes push cats out of the way or knock them down. And then alternatively, they could be in the wrong position. The door opens or closes and swings them right into you, and you could get killed by that. Now, Goro or Nyamko could be running around. He doesn't directly chase you. He's kind of the leader that looks over everything. If he runs into you, you die like when the other cats get you. But he typically likes to hide behind items. So if you can catch him behind an item, he gives you a point value. And it's kind of like, eating the ghosts in a way, gives you that point value. Then there are the microwave doors, as they're called. And those are the glowing doors. And when you open one, its beam goes out straight ahead from like you want to open it from one side, it goes straight out. And what happens is it will take everything with it. So the cats all go with that beam going across. and you will get points for eliminating them. And they're gone for a short time, just like the ghosts in Pac-Man. Um, but instead of going to a ghost house, they reappear from the attic of the house and drop back down. And that was always the fun factor for me, was you felt like you were in this house. And I always loved, like in later levels, that you could actually go in the attic. And, there wasn't any roaming around. It was a platform. But the problem is you could only see so far, because what would happen is um, the uh, 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 the windows were the only way you could see your character. So I'm glad she loves Mappy. I think Mappy is a very underrated game, in my opinion. Got a lot more love in Japan. And one of these days, we're going to actually play the sequel, the arcade sequel that they did, which is called Hopping Mappy. And that one, you're out in the yard of a house and you're collecting garden gnomes and other objects that would be out in front of the house because the cats are trying to steal them now. And you're on a pogo stick, and it's a lot of fun. Um, that's why I always said Mappy was just like such an experimental, fun game that they came out with. But it's, and what's great about this museum is it gives you that opportunity to go through the museum, learn about the game, learn a little bit about the history. They didn't do the same route as the Williams collection where they interviewed everybody. That was kind of innovative for its time, and later on in other compilations you would see that as well, like the Atari 50th, where they would talk to the designers, talk to Nolan Bushnell. you know this that didn't exist in this disc, any of these discs. It was more kind of a tactile, hands-on. You felt like you're walking through the museum and actually seeing the product and touching it. And that's what I always loved about this particular series. You know, now this is what their instruction sheet would look like. Now on ours, it looked a little different. The artwork was fairly the same, but a little bit different. And what they would do is they would silkscreen a little window, and you'd put that in the glass underneath. It would be taped in underneath, and of course, it would damage the paint later on. That was always fun. Oh, here's one we can go in and take a look on the, a little bit closer. I got to remember how to do it. There we go. So you can scroll in. And like I had mentioned, the only downside is none of it was translated. So everything is what you would see in the Japanese release. It would have been interesting to see a patch where maybe all the objects would be converted, like they would have gone in and photoshopped English into it so that you could read everything that they had done. But this is what their artwork looked like. Ours was a little different. They used the pixel art more on our product as opposed to them doing like really cute anime style characters. But that's what that looks like. And that would have been the instruction sheet. So we'll exit out of here. And we are going to go deeper into this section of the museum. And like I said last week, Bally got the boards from Namco. So whenever you see a board set here, it's actually the same board set that we got. There's no difference whatsoever, other than they might have changed voltages and things like that. But pretty much the same, the exact same board set. In fact, I own a board set to Mappy. It's out in my garage right now. Of course I do, right? Yeah, that was what the board set looks like. It's two pieces. It had a ribbon cable that attached the top to the bottom. And, one section was the main board, and the second was usually video or maybe audio chips, things like that. I believe the 6-pin on the bottom of the right-hand one was your color, so that would have made it the video section of the board. And very reliable for the most part. The toughest boards to work on were the Pac-Man, because Pac-Man did not use what we call a switching power supply. It used real AC running through the boards, and typically you find boards from Pac-Man being damaged because of heat from the amount of voltage it was going through it all the time, and poor upkeep, mostly. But when you had boards like this that were using we call a switching power supply, it was on DC voltage. It was less voltage going into the board. usually a 12 volt and a 5 volt and a -5. You didn't have as many problems with those boards as you did the Pac-Man. Galaxian, same thing. Galaxian had tons of problems because of the same situation. Because when they made Pac-Man, they just used the Galaxian board for its for its board set. So pretty much the same. Little fun fact. And okay, so now we are going down here, and we'll look at Professor Pac-Man's little thing here. This is more tips and tricks, if you will. Usually more hints. So, yeah, see here he's called Namco. On the American board, he's called Goro. So basically, they're describing it as that house is their hideout, and you are getting the things they stole. That's an interesting point to the story. Okay, Mappy was released in 1983. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about the bell. So later on in the levels, if I can get that high, because it's been a while since I've really sat down and played Mappy. In later levels, there's actually a bell that sits at the top on either side, left and right. Now remember, the screen scrolls left and right. So at the end of the house, up in the rafters, will be a bell on either side. If you jump up and hit that bell, it comes down. Any cats that are down underneath it get knocked out. And you've got to be really good to get to those levels. So, chase while being chased in this funny cat and mouse pursuit game. Mappy, the heroic police mouse, was chasing the Namco and Meowkies. You can tell that this was done in Japanese because they were trying to make it sound American. He followed them to their hideout. There were many expensive items stolen by the cats. What a strange house with no stairs and only trampolines. Don't let the cats catch Mappy or they will eat him for lunch. And there you go. Okay. And I always found this fascinating as well because you didn't see many, I don't think any compilations after this did this, which is seeing the sprites. Now today we take this for granted. You can go on Spriter's resource and you could download the entire sprite set. But this was the only way you could do it back then. Like they actually showed you, a note for note representation of each individual sprite. Well, that's his getting killed. And there's Namco. And that's what he looks like when you catch him. He gives you 1,000 points. So he has to be behind an object. And when you run up to that object and collect it, you find him. He gives you 1,000 points. And the Mewkies. I always thought they very Muppet-like. Like if Jim Henson had animated or had done puppets of Mappy, I think that's what it would look like. Is they would look like Muppet. Okay, cat coin comes out later. It's a hurry up. If you don't hurry, the coin comes out and chases you. And it spins around like that. And then, of course, you have your objects. The stereo, the television, computer. For 1983, that's a computer. And then, of course, you have the Mona Lisa. You have a safe. There's the bell that sits above the rafters. And you'll notice it's the same bell from Pac-Man. Musical notes come in later. You'll see those later on. There's the microwave. Very similar to the flanks beam in Gapless and Galaga. Because remember, the enemy uses a flanks beam on you to capture your ship. These are the balloons you're going to capture in the bonus round. And then if you get the Namco balloon at the very end, you get a double score bonus at the very end. And then, of course, it says hurry. That scrolls across the screen to remind you to hurry up. And there you go. All right. Now it's time to go into the room. And like I said, these rooms are so cool. And I think they really stepped it up for these. Wait till you see this. This is the bomb. Look at this. You can look up at them. See that? And a little jazz rendition of Mappy, which I love. And then they move back and forth, and then they took pictures of the intro and put them down here. And I love that you can just walk around in here, you know, like. And I used to spend hours just doing what I'm doing right now. Oh, and I forgot to show you. So the exit door is Namco's big mouth. And those look like the bells. Now, I could be wrong. Out the window, they look like the bells in the game. You know, you can't go up the stairs. That's the sad part. Like, I would have loved to have gone upstairs. And I like that Namco has an oil painting of himself because he's so full of himself. So, yeah, we're going to... Now, they didn't show the Mappy arcade cabinet full size. I believe theirs was their standard Namco Pac-Man style that you see. Our Bally Midway Pac-Man shaped very similarly to theirs. Ours has a little bit more slope to it than theirs. Theirs is more angular. But they represented this one with a cocktail table. And I keep wanting to hit both of my analog controllers, but you can't do that. So there we go. Now we're in front of the machine. And let's try a game of Mappy, because I know this is going to go really well. I haven't played Mappy in so long. I don't know. As I've gotten older, it's very difficult to play a game. Like I don't play like I used to. Sadly, I just don't. You know. Then again, I'm around games all day long, so it makes it rather difficult to sit and play all the time. But I enjoy it when I do. That's the thing. I enjoy when I play. Now remember, this is a representation. This is not emulation at all. As far as I know, all of these were written specifically for these discs. There's no emulation being used at all here. So they went in, they got the sprites, they recreated the game line for line. Of course, you know, this is a vertical game. To make it horizontal, what did they do? They took everything and put it to the right-hand side, your score and everything. You know, and then they kind of kept the aspect ratio of the vertical cabinet within the confines of the game screen itself. And I love that they demonstrate exactly what it's like when you get the bonuses, because they increase by 2 every time you match another set. And it's such a beautiful game. It just, you know, the minute I saw this game, it caught me because of the house. Like seeing the roof, the rafters, the windows, all of that. You felt like you were in a house. And that's what always got me. I love the wood grain on the doors after you open them. That's always been cool. There's just something very almost physical to the game. Like, you know, you could reach out and touch, you know, that game. Like you could be a part of it. And I think that's, you know, it's funny with all the realism we have today, it's kind of sad that we're in a time where we could have hyper realistic everything, but it still doesn't have the magic that a game like this has, in my opinion. Now, everybody's opinion is different. I didn't grow up with the games today. I don't play all this stuff. I mean, I play modern games to a certain degree, but not like the stuff that people play. Um, I am a classic gaming enthusiast to the very end, till my last breath, and you know everybody knows that. Anybody who knows me, Disney Quest was my true love because those were my babies. Every single one of those machines I took care of, and you know that's why I love games like this. They just stand out to me. They're fun, they're challenging, yet there's something tactile, very fundamental about these games that doesn't exist, I don't think, in today's games. They do for other people, not for me. All right, let's coin up, shall we? Here we go. Now the sounds are exact. Like their sound emulation got a lot better later on. So the key is to match. You want to try to match as much as you can. It's not always easy to do, And of course, I pushed myself away from the object I was trying to get. All right. You can get bonus points for knocking them over, of course. And you can always, as soon as you're on a platform, you can open and close the doors without being close to them. I mean, you always felt like, well, you know, I can't do that unless I'm right on top. No, you don't have to be right on top of anything. You can jump. Now, remember, these trampolines have to reset. So you have to get off the trampoline and onto a physical platform for them to reset. All right, there we go. And then other levels, there's going to be ones that we're going to have to jump through in order to... I'm going to... Okay. I didn't match one of them, which is fine. But fun fact, I didn't own just one Mappy. I owned 2 Mappies at one point or another. I was a huge fan of this game. Always wanted one. Always had to have one in my collection. If I had one right now, I'd be tickled pink. In fact, if anybody watched my stream on Arcade 1-Up, I honestly really wanted them to create a Mappy Arcade 1-Up machine. I thought that would be the bomb. Like that, I'd be like, here's my money. Take it all. I'm good. Excuse me, guys. And you'll notice that Namco tends to stay away from you. He will not jump on the same place. He lets the cats do all the work. So you don't ever have to worry about him. Now he's hiding. Let's see if I can get him. No, I missed him. There goes the hurry. If I take too long, that coin comes out and it will follow me. There we go. Now this is the bonus round. Bonus rounds are hard. There's a method to them, but let's see if I can do it. And it sounds like Muppet music. I always love that. It sounds like Muppet Babies. Oh, crap. Ah. There we go. I can't get that one because it's red. All right, we're going to go for the... Here we go. I had to give up because I had them. They were red. I could not step on them or it would have been the end of the bonus round. I got what I could and I made sure to get that balloon. There we go. Got an extra life out of it. All right. Now things are going to get a little bit more hectic. Now I can go up in the attic. I'm going to waste this microwave and I'm not happy about it. But you don't have a choice sometimes. You just got to do what you got to do. Also, you could, as you saw, I could push on the door, open it, and then he'll get knocked over behind me so he won't kill me. Oh, no. Namco actually came after me. Holy Toledo. It's funny how a game like this can just pull you in. Just like no problem at all. We're just going for it now. And later in the whoops, I got killed. Later on, they're so fast, you just grab and go. You don't even worry about anybody at that point. You just go. Because they're after you. There we go. Doop, doop. So you can see how fast they're getting now. They're crawling up faster to me. So this is when you, oh my God, I'm good. Oh, I didn't make it. their speed adjusts every single level. They get faster and faster and faster. And I used to get around. I could get through about 10 rounds of this. I wasn't like the gaming god or anything, but I could play. See how they're catching up. So you got to be careful. You got to be smart. You got to stay out of their way. Let's see if I can catch them. Go, baby, go. Go, baby, go. Ah! Woo! Wow. Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. Gotcha. There we go. Wow. Now they're not messing around. It's go, go, go. See, he got me. Hey, not a bad run for a guy who hasn't played Mappy in probably a couple of years. And of course, I get my name in. Watch this. Now watch what he does. They just don't make games like this anymore at all. Like this is the stuff right here. You know, like games today just can't hold up to this. I know that the younger generation probably wouldn't even bat an eyelash at a game like this, but there's just something about it to me that screams my youth. Uh, how fun it was to go to an arcade with money in my pocket to play a game like this. You know, it's amazing. You know, I can remember even when I had my job at Dream Machine, and that's where I saw this game for the first time, of course. Um, I was making minimum wage. I don't even remember what it was back then. It was probably like $4 and something back then in 1981, or even 83 for that matter, because at that point it would have been 1983. You know, I was I driving at that point? Yeah, I must have almost been driving. I think I was close to getting my license. Um, I remember, saving up money. And then on the weekends, before I had my license, we would take a bus, the city bus, up to South Hills Mall. And I lived in Hopewell. Now, for anybody out there who's from the Poughkeepsie area, Hopewell and Poughkeepsie are fairly far apart. You don't walk there. And I think it was like a half-hour ride from my house to the mall to go to work. And I remember my days off. We would hop the bus. Me and a couple of friends of mine would hop the bus. We'd go up to the mall. And at that point, we had two arcades in South Hills Mall. We had Dream Machine, which I worked at, and then we had Park Place. And Park Place was a roller skating rink. It was a gorgeous roller skating rink, like the atypical 80s neon mirror roller skating rink. It was just gorgeous. Well, this guy had an arcade in the roller rink that was massive, and then he had one across the hall that was a little bit smaller. And later on, when Park Place closed, that became the annex for Dream Machine. We had two separate arcades at that point, but this was 83. They were still there. I don't think they disappeared until about late 84. Oh no, mid 84 they closed down because by then they were building the movie theater. Um, but we used to go up and like I would have $10 in my pocket, and it would be enough for something to eat, and then you would go to the arcade and spend the rest of it because we had a bus pass. So it was great. You could just hop the bus, go here, go there. Um, that's what this game reminds me of, is that time in my life. And I think we all have that, right? We all have those moments where we look at something or listen to a song or whatever, and you remember. And that's what arcade games do for me, because I can remember the moment I saw this game for the first time. And, you know, uh, we were using tokens, of course, and we had our red tokens. So, we were allowed to use those red tokens. I don't even remember how many we got during a shift, but you could go to the manager, ask for some red tokens if you wanted to, or on your days off, you just come up with your hard earned money and start dumping it in like everybody else. And I remember pouring a lot of money into Mappy. I played it and played it and played it. It was just one of those games I could keep coming back to over and over and over again. And whenever I play it now, it just gives me the same warm feelings I got the first time I played it. And I don't know that games today give you that same thing because it's a movie experience now. It's telling a story. It's doing this, doing that. There's no story here. It's you're a mouse. You're taking stuff the cat stole, and they're chasing you. It's more about the environment that you're playing in, the people around you, the cabinet pulling you in. It was a very different experience, and we sort of get that today in arcades. Like looking at Arcade Time, and when Disney Quest was around, you got that from a different perspective. One of the favorite stories I have is one day I was working at Disney Quest, and I want to say it was like a weekend, and I watched this one family come in, and it was always kind of slow in the morning on certain days, and this particular Saturday it was slow, and this one family came in, and the mom went off with the daughter. Dad had the son. Dad's walking around. He's down on the third floor next to uh, Buzz Lightyear, and over there we had a Cubert, and a Cubert's another one of my top 10. And he goes up to the Cubert machine and he looks at it, and he kind of gets a little misty, and he's looking at his son, who's got to be maybe 10, 12, somewhere around there, you know. And he looks at him and says, I remember the first time I played this game, and now I get to play with you. And they must have sat there for about an hour on that machine, solid, you know. Where kids today, you go to an arcade, and I saw this a lot at Arcade Time, is they'd go up, they'd play it for a few minutes, they'd walk away. You know, back in the old days, you could spend hours on one game, especially when you got to stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or any of the side-scrolling beat 'em ups where you would just pump money into it, like Gauntlet, things like that. You would play for hours because that it just sucked you in. That's what they do. And that's what this game does. It brings back those fond memories of my youth, because this game came out. I was, God, 15. Yeah, 15. It was right before I got my learner's permit, right before. And so, I'm taking the bus up, and, you know, uh, just amazing times. I remember having a headset like this. I had, I had a headset like this, and it would play FM radio. And, I would always listen to WPDH. And those of you from Poughkeepsie, WPDH, man, they rocked back then. And I'd have my headphones on like a big goofy dork that I was. Had the little volume knob on the side. You could turn it up and just let the world go away for a while. And we take that stuff for granted today because, you got streaming. I mean, forget MP3s, you got streaming. That does the same thing. But back in the day, man, I had these big honking headphones on, and they had the little antenna that came out of it that was like a foot long, you know. And you'd go in the arcade, you'd lose signal. It was gone. So you just take the headphones off, put them around your neck, and just start playing, man. You know, you had to have money to have a cassette player that you could put in your pocket. That was big bucks back then. Not my kind of money, but that's the. I'm sitting here talking because this game brought up all these memories, and that's what it does. It brings out the best memories that you have, you know, games like this, because you can remember. You can remember the moment you saw it. I mean, I remember when I first saw the NES port, and I was working for a place here in Orlando called Video Game Traders. They were huge back in the early and mid '90s before they went out of business. Um, I would where I worked for them part time. I was always rebuilding NESs because those little edge connectors that would come down. It would fold. It was like a horseshoe, and it would go down into the actual cartridge port that was in the bottom of the machine because it was the same board set pretty much as the Japanese Famicom. And one day I was working on rebuilding one, and there was a handful of cartridges that I could use to test. And I picked up one, and it said Mappy, and went, "What the what? There's a Mappy for NES?" I popped that in. I must have played for an hour. My boss looked at me and goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "This is Mappy. Are you kidding?" You know, and I didn't know that they did a home port in Japan, and sadly, never made it to the States. Great game, very playable, and in fact, the review I did years ago for my Mappy little countertop that I have plays the NES ROM and is very playable, a lot of fun, and highly recommend if you can emulate or if you have an NES that's been modded, play the NES port of Mappy. You will not be disappointed. I know that I've played videos on the website of the various ports that came out. There was a lot of ports for Mappy, particularly in Japan, because Mappy was a whole thing over there. Um, I know that Pac-Man was popular, but boy, Mappy just had a life of its own because they got toys and little robots and all kinds of stuff over there. They went nuts for Mappy. But this is Mappy, and it's one of my all-time favorites, and always will be. Just the cartoony graphics, the feel of being inside that house and running around like a crazy person. It just brings back happy memories. Happy memories. So, all right, we're gonna exit out of Mappy. I got to remember how to do it. Uh, there we go. I forgot how to do it already. Oh yeah, I think this one has this. Yeah, you could flip the screen. Yeah, simulated arcade. Let's take a look at that because I find that hilarious. I think Namco had the pulse on technology. They knew that eventually televisions were going to be flat screen and light, and you could just flip them and whatever, you know. But they were just like, you know what? You want to flip your giant screen? No, what did that do? That didn't do anything. That didn't do anything. All right, hold on. I thought this one did. Hold on. Let's get out of it. Hang on. Gotta wait for it to boot. I love that it actually does the boot up. That to me is really cool. There we go. Hold on. Simulated horizontal. Arcade vertical. There it is. Okay. So let's look at, I don't even remember looking at this. Yeah. So, of course, you get the, hey, warning, your TV is really heavy, so you may not want to do this. But we're going to hit okay because, again, I think the I think the recreation got better and better as this went on. And you can see that this looks like the arcade port, like spot on perfect. You can hear the sounds are better because like in Pac-Man the samples were a little off, but this is, look at that. I mean, that is the arcade version of Mappy right there to the letter. um, and to know that somebody recreated this, like a group of guys sat around and said, hey, we're doing this museum, let's recreate that game, and they went through it and they did it, and it's exactly as you remember everything about it. So cool. All right, there we go. Let's turn that off so we don't have it stuck there next time we play. There we go. I want to see something. Arcade vertical, arcade vertical. Simulated arcade. Okay, so that's simulated arcade. What's the difference there? Oh, I see that. Oh, that's interesting. Because remember, the other one was just a, the horizontal whatever. I don't get what the difference is here. Maybe they were working with emulation. Who knows at this point? I want to say that as they adapted and got good at good at this, and emulation became more prominent because these, see, there's no difference. I don't see any difference there at all. But as they got more prominent, I know that they must have um, done some emulation with it. So we're going to go back to the museum. Okay, let's go back to the museum, shall we? that we've been here for 40 minutes. We'll do a quick peek at some of the other games, but I really want to go through the museum and show you that lounge, because the lounge is so it's a party. That's all I gotta say. It's a party. All right, Mappy, we're leaving, buddy. Right through the mouth of a cat. There we go. But as you can see, that they really didn't change the formula too much on this. So the layout is exactly the same. It's like a horseshoe that goes into another room, a horseshoe that goes into another room, and it's all a hub in the middle. There we go. But let's go over here. I want to go to Super Pac-Man. Let's take a look at Super Pac-Man. Super Pac-Man is another one of those special games. It's in my top 10. I was a massive fan. Little fun tidbit. I had my computer. It had to be around 1984 that this happened. But we used to link our computers together and, download software. Let's just leave it at that. But because we did download that software still exists. So you're welcome. But I remember once we were going, now this was right at the crash. Now, most people think the crash was 83. It was really, 84 was the aftermath. That was like companies going out of business. That's when the average Joe felt it, was the in 1984. So, word got out very quickly in July that Atari was being sold, and that they were opening their it wasn't even a server back then. It was their mainframe that stored all their games. And there was a lot of unreleased ROMs that went through the pike. And we're going through the list, and I see Super P. And I went, what? No, that can't be. So my friend Alex and I are looking at it going, hey, let's download it and see what happens. Downloaded it, and it was the Atari 8-bit version of Super Pac-Man. I was floored. And to this day, that is another home port on the computer that plays exactly like the arcade. Like, I learned how to play Super Pac-Man with that game. I could rattle right through the game after that, because I learned, like what levels, the power-ups, how long they lasted. Your super pellets, you had to make sure you could clear the entire maze. You had to know what keys unlock what door. I couldn't do that today, but back then I could. But anyway, so of course you get in this, and I noticed in this volume, everything is set up exactly the same in every room. I think there was a little bit on and off in the first one. This one, like, you'll see that the pamphlet that you can pick up, which we'll look at here real quick. But as you can see, this is the this is the actual, hold on, this is in English. Whoop. There we go. So let's zoom in here. Yeah, look at that. This one is actually in English. We found something in, I did not realize. I don't remember. I probably went through this a billion times, but yeah, this one. But there's a lot of controversy at this point when Super Pac-Man comes out. Now, so you had Bally, who is biting at the bit for a sequel. They are begging Namco to please release this game, and it wasn't ready. And, because at that point, Pac-Man was everywhere. And, by 1981, they're like, we need this sequel. And when the sequel did not come out fast enough for them, that's when they had General Computer do Ms. Pac-Man. Well, they were already in the process of doing. They did Crazy Otto, and then they just changed the character to Ms. Pac-Man. And that's where the feud between Bally and Namco really started, because here they made an unlicensed version of Pac-Man. And for years, they did not look at Ms. Pac-Man as an actual Pac-Man game at all. It wasn't until later on that they adapted Miss Pac-Man, and it was in the early to mid '90s when that happened. That's why the NES has two versions. They have the Tengen version, and they have the Namco version. The Namco version, surprisingly, is terrible in my opinion. The Tengen version, they went crazy. They added all kinds of crazy mazes and things like that. But it was all because of this game, because they were waiting on Super Pac-Man, and then the game comes out, and people are kind of like, "Wow, it's very different." They wanted more of the same, and it's different. So, there was a huge push away from Super Pac-Man, which I think is sad because Super Pac-Man, in my opinion, is probably the best version of Pac-Man to play because it's very strategic. There's a lot going on, and you only have so much time to clear around and be Super Pac-Man. And that's the key. You want to be able to break through the walls and complete the round as quickly as possible, especially when you get to the bonus rounds, because at this point, we're talking about bonus rounds in just about every Namco game that comes out, other than like pole position, things like that. So, I think it was a highly underrated game. Bally released it a year later after Miss Pac-Man. It was, less than a year, probably. It was because Miss Pac-Man hit in 1981. It was like March or April of 81. And I think Super Pac-Man hit, give or take a year later. It was about February in 82 when Super Pac came out. Also, another fun fact, if you watched my video of joysticks, great movie, a little dicey with the adult themes, but I know there's an edit out there that actually takes out the adult part of it. They built a real arcade for this. I mean, it was real in the sense that those were real machines in a real warehouse. It was an arcade. And Bally had two games coming out that they wanted to advertise in the game, in the movie. And that was Super Pac-Man and Satan's Hollow. And Super Pac-Man gets played, I want to say that's in the middle of the movie when they King Vidiot challenges, or maybe I got that reversed. It's one or the other. There's one in the middle and one at the end. And I'll have to watch the movie again. It's been ages since I've watched that movie. But if you don't mind the early 80s stuff going on, great movie. I mean, it really is. It's a lot of fun. One of the atypical early 80s teen comedies that came out, but because it took place in an arcade, it was just more fun. But it was a real arcade with real machines. They were real. It was set up as a real arcade. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if people didn't just start walking in and playing games, but that's how they advertised Super Pac-Man. That movie released before the game came out. That was how I learned about it, was through the movie. So let's exit out of that. Okay, that's interesting. I did not remember that they did that. So they had the instruction sheet for the American game, and then they had the instruction sheet for the Japanese game. And I always loved the borders on the Japanese art. I mean, that's just killer how they did that. But anyway, all right, because we're already almost at an hour. But I'm going to keep on playing because it's a lot of fun. And if you want to watch still, you can watch. If you're out there, fantastic. If not, you'll see it some other time. And I'm good with that. I've told everyone, including my wife, I don't do this for views. I mean, if you want to watch and you want to say hi, fantastic. Go ahead and do it. I'm all for it. But I'm not here for that. I'm here to convey my memories, my history, my everything that I have on these games. And if I can gain an audience doing it, I'm all for it. Oh, this was on the side of the cabinet. It looks like it's more on top of the cabinet, but yeah, we'll go there. That is really cool. I wonder if I can make that. That would look really cool on my 40th anniversary Pac-Man. That is really cool. All right. This is the flyer. We'll jump in real quick, look at the flyer. I don't want to spend too much time because I do want to get through the museum, But as you can see, that's the Japanese flyer. Ours was fairly similar, except the artwork for the front page was very different. Very different. And it was, like I said, it was always a two-sided job. So you had the front that would give you this exciting art of the game. You'd flip it over, and then it showed you how to play. Very basic how to play. But just enough that the operator got the idea how the game worked, and then they could decide if they were going to purchase it. And it did fairly well. I had one at Dream Machine. They were everywhere. That's a header. We're not going to look at. There's the board set. That's the hints. Let's look at the hints real quick, give you an idea. But yeah, I just, I love this stuff. See, this is what I was talking about. You want to memorize what door opens each key. Okay, now, typically what happens, 2 rounds will work the same way. Okay, so like when you're in round 1 and round 2, the keys work the same way and will open the same doors. And then it changes. And the next round and second round after that will be the same. And it just keeps going and going and going. And it's important because you want to make sure you get the key with the power pellets, but the super power pellets. Because once you have the super ability, you can break through doors. And the whole idea is that you want to do a speed run. You would grab that super power pellet and run through every door without touching a single key. You could get all of it. Now, later on, it becomes more difficult because everything wears out faster, just like in normal Pac-Man, where your power pellet wears off quicker. So that happens in this game as well. Okay, so in this game, it's very weird, and I thought it was a glitch, and maybe it was. Is there are certain points in the game where the ghosts will just like stutter, and they'll just kind of sit there, and then they'll move, and it's a momentary thing. It's not like they sit forever. They just sit for a few seconds, and then they cook again. So when you learn when that happens, you can kind of back away from them when you're normal Pac-Man. That's always a good one. And like I said, Super Pac-Man can break through the doors, so he does not need a key. Once you're Super Pac, you can break through any door that is on the playfield. Now, the problem is some of those doors lead to a dead-end room. Now, there's only one maze, and you're going to notice, particularly at the bottom, there is one room that has no exit other than the way you came in. So it's very important not to get stuck in there. Also, this is the first game where you could get stuck in the ghost house. Yes, you can actually go in the ghost house and walk around. Problem is, it's very easy to get stuck in there, and you have to make sure you pull up when you get close to the door so he jumps back out again. First time I ever played the game, I got stuck in the ghost house. That's why I know that. All right. So this is about the super power pellets. You grab one, you are completely invincible. Now, it looks like the ghosts are shrinking. What's supposed to be happening is you're flying over them, okay? As you could see in the last frame, the ghost shrunk. You're flying over them. That's why they're lower to the ground than you are. That's what's supposed to be happening there. So you use the button to move faster. And that was another thing that threw everybody off with this game, is the fact that it literally had a button, and everybody got used to playing Pac-Man, and then at that point, Miss Pac-Man, and they're like, wait a minute, why is there a button on Pac-Man? Why do I need a button? And it's a speed up. Now, you don't have to use it. You can just coast right along, and there are some people like to play the game that way. You hit that button, it's like a speed up chip. It just, you take off. Now, the problem with that is you got to have the right controls. Modern machines have a very hard time with banking, especially when they're not a typical leaf switch joystick. When they're micro switch, they act differently. And then particularly if it's an 8-way as opposed to a 4-way, it becomes dicey. That's why Pac-Man with an analog stick is very difficult, because you have multiple points of contact and angles, and you're only supposed to go up, down, left, and right. So sometimes you'll be banking and you come to a dead stop because you're not going up, down, left, or right. So it becomes very difficult to play a game like this on a standard controller or on an analog controller. So now this is where it gets really cool. In the original Pac-Man, you had a bonus fruit, okay? In this one, you have kind of a slot machine. So what happens is after you get through so many, doors and eat so many items, this thing in the middle, there are two squares, a star appears in the middle. In the two boxes are your items. Now, if you match an item, you get like a higher point value, depending on the one you got. It had never been done before like that. So you could add more points to the game if you got. It's all about timing. Super Pac-Man is all about timing. I could get to the point where I'm coming from the left, so I bank over. I get my super power pellet. I come back down. I go through the power pellet down in the right or left hand corner on the bottom. Up, go through all of those. Get the one on the top. Go through the top. As I get to that power pellet on the right upper top, that's when this is going off. Then I will run down, grab that, get the bonus. And a lot of times, because of just my timing, I'm able to get those two bonuses to match. Now, it's very difficult, again, with a control like this, but when I would play on a standard leaf switch joystick, I could rock this game. Now, was I a top score player? No. But I was good enough for people to watch me. So that meant a lot to me. But yeah, that's Super Pac-Man in a nutshell right there. So we'll exit out of there. Come over here. We won't look at the how to play. Let's just go right into the game because I think we've got the general idea. Because I'm going to totally not do well at this one at all. I love this. It's a bar. And I love that Clyde has a mustache. The barkeep. Look at him. And then you come over here and everybody is drunk. Everybody has a hangover. They don't even want to bother with you, except for this guy who's totally happy to see you. Now, every once in a while, the theater up there will start playing. Let's wait and see what happens. It'll start playing like the game itself. Like I think it's the intermissions. We'll play, and then the ghosts go crazy. Like I said, there was a lot more put into this game, into this disc than the other one. Again, I think it came down to A, timing, and B, they understood the job at that point and probably had the tools necessary to create. Here we go. Watch this. Watch this. I love that. They don't like that at all. All right, so we're going to play Blinky in some Super Pac-Man. Here we go. This is so cool. I just love that you can do this. I don't remember if they did borders after this. That was the thing too. I think borders were, they did a border on the Pac-Man, but I think after that they were pretty much done with borders. So. You can hear the little stuttering there. They're using actual samples, but this is not emulation. This is a recreation of the game. So doesn't make it bad at all, because if you look at the most popular multi-cabinet of all time, which is the Ms. Pat Gallagher Class of 1981, those are recreations. They're not emulated at all. They actually recreated the game note for note. And you can tell because Galaga has like a real explosion sound, which is weird. So, but okay. So here's your maze. You can see all the doors, and you can see in the center you've got those two squares, and that's where the slot machine takes over when you get to a certain point. But let's give it a shot and see how far I can make it. As soon as I remember how to. Uh-oh. Why am I not coining up? Interesting. Not coining up for some reason. Oh, let me get out of that because obviously something's going on there. We'll go back in again. Something happened. That's the problem with sometimes you're using emulation. Things kind of go weird. Unfortunately, I do not have my PlayStation 1 anymore. I do have a PlayStation 2, but it is not HDMI ready, so it's very difficult to even try to stream off of that. So we're going to go in. There we go. I don't know why it stopped working. That was so weird. All right, let's go to the games. We'll just go to Super Pac-Man. There we go. And that's what happens if you do just the game. But we're going to go in and see why it's not working, because I don't remember. That is very weird. It doesn't want to coin up at all. Interesting. Well, I guess we won't be playing Super Pac-Man, guys. And that's all right, because we're going to go through the museum anyway. We'll play Super Pac-Man some other time. I don't know why it wouldn't. That's weird, because we just played Mappy and had no problem at all. And I know that my start buttons are mapped up here, my coin up and my start, so very weird. So we'll just go into the museum and we will go to, let's go into the museum. We're going to go to the lounge because we're already at 9:10 and I wanted to really show you the lounge. I hate when things go wrong. I apologize sincerely and I will fix the problem eventually when we get back to it. Okay. Let's take a look at Gapless real quick. We'll just run into the rooms. We won't have to look at the memorabilia. I highly recommend these discs if you can get your hands on them. I don't think that they're too expensive. I think they're pretty reasonable, actually. I mean, collecting as a whole now it goes up and down. Unfortunately, that's how it works. But these rooms, they have just spent meticulous. Look at this, and I love the music in here. And you can walk right up to the ship. Look at that. Right up to the ship. If that doesn't make you nauseous, nothing will. Oh, okay. We're going to exit out of there. I'll take you through all the hallways. At least that way you get an idea of what it looks like when you go inside. Yeah, that really bothers me, the Super Pac-Man. I'm going to have to check out why it's not working. Very, very strange. But we're going to go out here. We'll check out Dragon Buster. We'll check out Grobda. And then we'll go into the lounge and call it a night. Because then by then maybe we'll hit 9:30. Dragon Buster was their first attempt at an adventure game. This was before they did Tower of Jiraga. I think maybe I'm off by a year. I do tend to forget. There's a dragon back there. Listen to that music. It's just, and the amazing part is you can literally listen to this on YouTube because all of this has been uploaded to YouTube. So I believe the dragon moves from time to time. There's swords over there. I am going to show you this. I am going to show you this game. This one is infamous because, again, the character is backwards. I think that's what throws me off with this game is the fact that he's backwards. If he wasn't backwards, I would like it a lot more. It does play very well. The game plays very, very well. And surprisingly, this was the first time I ever saw Dragon Buster was on this disc. And I found it to be a very good game. Yeah, 1984. They were released, I think, in the same year, maybe a year before. I don't know. I have to look it up. But you can see it has an overworld map, and there's your character backwards. You can see his hands are wrong. They're just wrong. But yeah, you kill the bad guys. You collect items. Let's go into the game, shall we? There we go. All right. Let's go up to the castle. Give this a shot. See? He's okay there. He turns around. He's backwards. There, forward. There, backward. Oh, that was my magic. Gotta be careful how much I use of that. Now, when you get to this is when... wow, I got a whole bunch of people coming after me. There we go. Then the room closes off and you got one big bad guy and you got to try to kill him before, and then you get whatever he has on him. Sometimes it's vitality, sometimes it's magic. I got a gem. I got a gem. But yeah, he's backwards. Drives me nuts. Like, what were they thinking? You made him backwards, going right. Okay, this was an easy one. Later on, these levels get quite complicated. And he'll exit out the door. There we go. Now, go there. There's always a couple of paths you can take to every location. There we go. And up is pulling up on the joystick, just so you know. Not, you know, not ideal, but yeah. See, if he wasn't backwards, I'd be okay with it. So you have to pick one of two paths. So basically, you're going to miss out on, at least on the first level, one location. So then you go up to the tower. Here we go. And there's the dragon. Let's go up to this mountain here. Ah, forgot about this wizard. There we go. He was easy. Click, get that. Now, surprisingly, this game is actually on the Pac-Man Pixel Bash, which we have on we have one at every location pretty much on property. You can play this game firsthand. I love it when this is like one of the first games I ever saw with branching paths, too. There we go. Got an extra fireball. Climb up here. There we go. Another fireball. Ah, snake. Ah, snake. Snake everywhere. There we go. There we go. Oh, look at that. Increased my vitality a little bit. Well, the meter anyway. And that's the thing. You don't know what rewards you're going to get until you get, you know, till you kill whatever. And we'll do one last one and we'll head out here. And there's our dragon again. Got him. And he almost got me. Walking backwards and I'm walking backwards and I'm walking forwards. Somebody got fired over that. You're fired. You made him walk backwards. Going to the right. That's crazy. Ooh. Ooh. You jerk. Ah. Ooh. There we go. Got a shield. I know what the shield does. I guess if I duck or I hold it up, maybe. I don't notice it doing much. Oh, there's no way I'm making it out of here. Alive, anyway. Ah. 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 Oh, that's it right there. And it doesn't save your high score the same way. It just shows it up there. But anyway, that's Dragon Buster. Okay, so we're going to get out of this guy. There's all kinds of, and I love that they use like simulated dip switches. You know, like you could actually, you know, save your progress in certain way, you know, settings anyway. So, all right, so that's Dragon Buster. And we may revisit these again, that we can kind of go through the games we didn't hit, because I think what we're going to do is head over to the lounge, because we are at 9:21 and I got to walk my doggy. So for those of you who have joined me, I want to thank you very, very, very much. I do this out of love for these games. You know, whoop, come on, Pac-Man, go through the door. There we go. But yeah, let's go to the lounge, because this lounge is the bomb. There we go. Oh, wait. No, it's not this one. Aw. Okay, it's the next one that's really good. This is more of the same. So basically, it's going to go over, you know, like the people who worked on it. Visual file of Xevious. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, it's the next one that's good, guys. I am sorry. Okay. Yeah, see, they go over illustrations that were made. And Xevious was very interesting because they created so many ships that basically were characters. And there was a lot involved in it. And Atari went all out when they brought this to the United States. I love that ship. Very Millennium Falcon looking. Only cooler, I think. Don't tell Han Solo I said that. And there's a Cylon Raider right there. But yeah, you know, it's a shame. I thought this was the one. Next week, Volume 3, because that's where it is. And you're going to love it. I'm not going to give it away. Various artwork. There's the magazines that we saw last week, only updated. Then there's a timeline here. You can listen to music. And I forget what that is. Oh, let's take a look at it real quick, because we're almost done, guys. I want to thank you for joining me. Oh, this is where you get, like, if you did, you know, and you played a game, like how long, what your score was, things like that. I forgot about that. It's the ledger that tells you all that. So, but anyway, let's do one more. Let's do one more. We'll walk through one more, shall we? Let's see. Xevious, we did Gapless or Grubda. Let's go through Xevious, because everybody remembers Xevious. Are you devious enough to play Xevious, as they used to say? Again, the hub, the halls are exactly the same. You walk through, you look at the stuff, and you go into the room. And here you go. And this is Xevious's room here. That must be the power source right there. Everything in here so far has been a cocktail table. That was the other, like, just disappointing. Like, I would have loved to see more uprights, but I think this one is all cocktail. So yeah, it looks like you're inside one of the enemy ships. That's what I think this is. And then there's a teleporter, and we're going to go through the teleporter. We'll go over to Grubda, and then we'll call it a night. So we'll have to try Super Pac-Man some other time, because that really disappoints me, because I really, really love Super Pac-Man. There we go. All right, where's Grubda? There you are. This is another one that's on the Pixel Bash series. Unreleased here in the States, I believe. I don't think they ever released it here at all. Very interesting game. Maybe we'll go into this one, because this is a very interesting... Grubda was the tank in Xevious. When you play Xevious, you'll see the tanks on the ground, and you're one of those tanks. And there it is, actually. And it actually had like drills for legs. That's how it moved. Music's good in this one. I believe they bring stuff and drop it into the ship as you're watching. Like, yeah, see the little thing that's going back and forth that drops stuff off on the ship. Music's great. The music for these discs, it can't be beat. It's just done so well. And like I said, you can go on YouTube and find it everywhere. They have tons of the music from these discs. So, oh man, I'm getting tired and I have to work tomorrow. Okay, this is Grubda. Now, let's wait for the demo here. So you're piloting the Grubda tank in a kind of duel to the death competition against other tanks. And the idea is you want to eliminate them without them eliminating you. You have a shield. You got to watch out for their explosions, because the explosion can kill you. And that's another one. Wow, does not start the same way. Very interesting. Yeah, it won't start. Huh. I don't know why. I don't remember. There must be something. Very interesting. Why won't you start? Hold on. There may be something wrong with the emulation. Maybe that's what it is, that they don't want to start, because I'm fully locked out. Well, I guess we're going to end it there tonight. There's always something, right? There's always something. But anyway, I want to thank all of you for stopping by and spending time with me here at the Arcade Lair. I enjoy giving you a dose of my history while I play these classic games, or even when I can't. Grubda is a very interesting game. And one of these days we'll actually probably pull it up in a MAME or something. We'll play it that way. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing this. There's something very special about bringing this history to you, even for the few people that actually want to watch it. And I have no problem with that whatsoever. Like I said, I do this for myself, not anybody else in particular. So, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And when I post it on YouTube, you can watch it there, and just enjoy the memories that I give. I think is really the history of these games and what I offer. I appreciate it. I really do. So you guys have a great evening. I will see you this time next week when we do Volume 3. And keep playing like it's 1981, guys. Really. And I will see you next week. Bye now.